How is the market opening in the last 7 minutes?
Hello, Chris. Thank you for having me. As you know, Nigerian equities closed higher in yesterday's trading session. It's basically the second consecutive trading day that the market had experienced gains, although we would not be quick to call it a bull market as of yet, knowing how unpredictable these markets can be. At the close of the trading session yesterday, we saw the All-Share Index gain up approximately 1.25%. Market capitalization increased much higher by about 2.6%, largely due to the new listing of Honeywell flour mills by way of introduction at 8 Naira and 50 kobo per share. Volumes have held up quite strongly over the last couple of weeks. Yesterday, we saw volumes for about 654 million shares. We expect that trend to continue. And as you look at some of the trends in the market, you realize that a lot of the volume activity or trading activity is driven by the banking sector. We think investors are selectively positioning themselves in certain banking stocks, although not necessarily willing to pay more as of yet until we know what earnings look like. And so in the near term, we see more interest in the banking stocks, but as far as index levels goes, we think, we might continue to see some of these sideways movements.
Now, talking point this morning, Nigeria's plan to allocate 10% of its oil joint ventures to Niger Delta residents. Is that going to have any ramifications or ripples on the market? Okay, I think we've lost him there. I mean, sorry, TK, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Could you please come again with that question? Sorry.
Okay, I'd say the plans to allocate 10% of joint ventures and oil revenues to Niger Delta residents, is that likely to have any impact at all on the market?
Well, I think at this point that's an update that should probably have more effects on the macro economy. But in the near term, we don't really see it filtering through to the equity markets in any significant shape.
So in the studio here, Charles Otiahallam, what do you think?
With regards
to the Niger Delta and 10% of oil joint ventures to the
I think, like TK has just pointed out, I think it's a stability issue, kind of macroeconomic issue, political issue, which will bring overall confidence to the economy and to the system.
And speaking about confidence in the economy, there's still, this hasn't petered out yet, this talk about the cleanup of the banking sector. How do you think that's faring?
Well, I think we've done the first steps where we've injected the money in, $3.7 billion in. Typically with a bank workout, what you do is you inject this money, then you look for an exit. You look for a way to get out. Nigeria, as I've said before, needs that $3.7 billion to do other things such as infrastructure in particularly electricity and water and roads. And so you'd be looking for an exit. The first thing then is to, of course, go into the banks, look at the quality of those books for sure. Now, I know that there are a number of international banks looking at Nigeria, including South African banks looking at the Nigerian banking system. And obviously, they're waiting to be sure that there aren't any more shocks. I think the central bank governor has made courageous efforts to try to clean up the system. Now we need to go to the next phase, which is to bring the private market to play in resolving the banking crisis by buying some of these assets, not as in the TAP kind of program in the US, but to come in and perhaps take over some of the banks that have failed, or at least look to take up parts of those banks. Then we want to return those monies as quickly as possible to the fiscus.
Dr. Otiahallam, you're staying with us as our guest host. Just one quick check back into Lagos and TK Daniel. So how do you think the market's going to go the rest of the week? How's it looking?
Well, for the rest of the week, like I indicated earlier, we think market is not likely to appreciate much significantly. We've always maintained that the banks sort of got us into this mess to begin with, and the banks will get us out of it. And so I think a lot of investors, when you talk to a lot of asset managers across the board, a lot of them seem to be looking, towards earnings and seem to be looking towards, now that we know what, the courageous steps that Sanusi has taken to sort of sanitize the industry, now let's take a look at your numbers and see, what sort of multiple that we're willing to trade your stock at. And so I think that's what that's most likely the catalyst, for renewed interest in this market.